Hello guys, so I'm going to be making a new series. I don't know what I'm going to call it. Hopefully something clever, but I know myself and I know that that is not me. Um, anyways, this series is going to be basically about players for Devil May Cry and videos for Devil May Cry. Um, basically, I'm going to be going over the history of the gameplay community for Devil May Cry. Um, more so focusing on the works and their impact. Originally, I thought about separating these two. I thought about making a video series only for players and sort of like talking about a player per video and that player's impact, the player's work, what he did, so on and so forth. Um, but I also wanted to make a video series for single videos that sort of like inspired many. Because there are sometimes players who just make one work and or one or two videos and then they leave. But that single video changes stuff substantially. So but those don't happen that often. So I thought about just merging them together for simplicity's sakes. And so most of the players and works I'm going to be talking about are things that I enjoyed growing up, things that may have inspired me for the most part, and things that have actually done significant changes to the community just based on their work, their gameplay, so on and so forth. Um, I'm not going to be covering everybody. I am biased, so I'm going to be covering the people whose works I enjoyed the most. And part of that is simply because there's a lot of players and a lot of different contributions. Even though some players might not be that great, almost everyone has contributed in some form or another. So yes. Also, I'm going to be starting from early in Devil May Cry's history. So I'm going to be starting with DMC 3 and then go up to like DMC 4, 5, reboot. Um, I'm not going to be doing DMC 1 and 2 more likely than not because I don't really play those games heavily and those games don't have as much of a background when it comes to style play comparatively to DMC 3. DMC 3 is kind of where a lot of this stuff, combo videos and such, started. Um, and so I'm going to be starting early on in history, and part of the reason why I'm going to be doing that is because I want you guys to sort of have an introduction to a lot of gameplay concepts that we're going to be talking about. Because as time progresses, techniques progress, and also that means that the complexity and things I'm going to be explaining will progress. And so it's better to start you off early where things are more easier to understand, and hopefully with the information that I'm going to be giving you guys, you will be able to understand more advanced combo videos that happen later in the timeline of Devil May Cry. Without further ado, I'm going to be talking about the first combo video, to my knowledge. There could be other combo videos out there for Devil May Cry, particularly Devil May Cry 3. But those combo videos, if they exist, have not been very impactful, have not been saved basically on YouTube. So this is the first combo video I've seen, or one of the first combo videos that I've seen, and it has also left an impact on me. And the player behind this combo video is called PrinceOfDevil. I believe that's his name. I could be wrong, but in these videos, he is credited as Combo Craftsman or Combo Maker, which is an apt name, given how he basically started it all. And I recommend you guys watch the full thing if you want to. Again, this is basically the first guy who started it all. So, this combo video, very popular. It's called Hell equals Sloth is Dead. Ridiculously long introduction, by the way, sorry. This song choice is a classic, by the way. Classic. Throughout this video, you guys are going to be seeing a lot of things that surprisingly stayed consistent across combo videos later on. This combo video influenced how combo videos will be made in the future. There are like two of his works online, as far as I can tell. There's a sequel to this combo video, but this is the first combo video. It was at least on YouTube. It's July 10th. July 10th. 2006. Um, so that's pretty early. That's like baby YouTube hours. And judging from other gaming communities, there definitely have been people who, uploaded videos and crazy stuff online before YouTube existed. But in this case, this is like, for DMC3, this is like the start of it all, basically. This is on the original version of Devil May Cry 3. And you'll see a few differences. We're going to talk about them, namely that there's no turbo and that there is some limitation on how you can jump cancel certain moves. Again, we're going to be going over that later, but yes, this set a lot of the tone and how combo videos will be made for future DMC combo videos and whatnot. And again, this guy could have some fighting game experience, and maybe this combo video sort of layout that you see is taken from other gaming communities, such as fighting games and such. But also, I wanted to talk about how, like, you get the introduction and you get the music start, and also you get cutscenes, and that's something that you see a lot in combo videos. And then you actually get into the immediate action when the music actually starts in its normal rhythm. I want you people to notice as well that um, there's a lot of variety, a surprising amount of variety in these combos in terms of the moves you mesh together. There's sometimes in a few combos later on, there's going to be a bit of repetition, but overall, it's fairly varied and fairly smooth. It still flows well. That's one of the key components of a combo video, is that you have to make it flow well, and also that you have to kill the enemy eventually. Now, obviously, in the future, we get some like rule breaking here and there, but generally speaking, you are comboing on an enemy until it dies. So a lot of people kind of get this misconception, and I should probably mention this real quick. There's a difference between a combo video and a freestyle video or a boss fight video, right? A combo video is you beating up on an enemy from preferably start of its health up to you killing it. It's usually planned out. It's usually really difficult and shows off something. And it's a bunch of those clips of you wailing on a single enemy. Maybe it could be two enemies, but those are super rare. And basically that being the clips, the types of clips that you put in the combo video. The other videos are basically you wailing on a group of enemies or a boss, and usually it's you clearing a room or a wave, but usually a room. Sometimes highlights, you can take little pieces of a freestyle clip, yeah, and then put them together. But a freestyle clip is, freestyle video is not the same as a combo video. So I just want to point that out because people really do get confused about that. Part of the reason a freestyle video is not a combo video is because, largely speaking, not every freestyle video involves combos. You can sort of wail on an enemy, wail on an enemy for a bit. But you will occasionally just drop a combo on purpose to mess with another enemy, and sometimes you're not even comboing on enemies, you're hitting multiple enemies or one at a time. So yeah, that is why there's a difference between a combo video and a freestyle video. So let's go on. And we appreciate this sequence, by the way. So one of the things that you see often is the start of the combo is usually him wailing on an enemy while they're both standing. And then he either launches the enemy and or is in the air and hits the enemy. So here, comboing the enemy on the ground, transitioning into revolver, and then he uses jump canceling. And this is like really early on into the series meta development, gameplay development, whatever. So just putting it out there, jump canceling is not that hard. It depends on what you're jump canceling. At the basic level, though, you can definitely use and incorporate jump canceling really early on into learning the games. You just won't be able to jump cancel some crazy sequences, but you will be able to do something like this, which again, first combo video. I'm pretty sure you guys can, with like an hour or two of practice, can get something like this. but it is a little bit difficult. And he's winging on standing enemy, which kind of moves backwards. And that's just beautiful. Again, it's mid 2006, probably earlier, because this is not, the uploader is not the person who made this video. Also, that sequence is fine wine. Something that you'll eventually see a bit more as well, where people are doing a few weapon switching JCs, knocking the enemy down, and then like adding a few moves in between and finishing it off with a volcano. It's very hard to completely do a combo without juggling an enemy, but basically you don't have to have the enemy juggle the entire time you're comboing it. Now, of course, the standards are a little bit easier now. Not easier, harder now. So, there is something to be said about how often he leaves the enemy hit the ground. Nowadays, unless it's really justified, allowing the enemy to touch the ground is a no-no. But again, this is one of the first combo videos, and he still does it in a flowy manner. So here, it was completely justified to do that because he dive kicks into a shotgun shot, but he himself doesn't hit the ground. So this is one thing that you guys have to keep in mind as well, is that if the enemy hits the ground, that is actually not necessarily bad as long as you are the one in the air. Someone has to be in the air, whether it be you, the enemy, or both. And in very rare occasions, if it justifies it, both of you can be on the ground. Outside of like both of you standing, like the start of this combo, if the enemy is laying on the ground and you're beating on him while you're standing, that's a big no-no, generally speaking. But again, there's always exception to these rules, and so there could be some room for you to do something as long as you justify it. But again, this is early on in the combo video scene, and as you can see, he doesn't hit the ground until like very last moment with the finisher, which is justified. Also, that jump cancel sequence is a lot harder than it seems, especially for the time. It is varied too. Like, notice it's a dive kick into a flicker, into a swing, into a hammer. It's not very repetitive. It's very varied. And I believe the finisher of this is no. That is fairly weird to do. I think this might be a quirk with just the original version of DMC3, but that Helmbreaker is, whenever he does a Helmbreaker in the air and jump cancels on a standing enemy, that's just beautiful. Like, that is hard. At the time, I would still say it's kind of hard to do this. I don't know. Depends. But just know that this was pretty hard. We're going to talk about also the ways that people make combos. One of the things that you'll see is him using height changes to his advantage. So one of the key things to just know about DMC is that you have to know how your moves move you. Here, he does a high time into a bunch of moves that aren't jump canceled into each other. These are him canceling moves into other moves, and they're not like, they're just normal canceling things that everyone uses in their games. And because of that, he's losing height while the enemy is still being retained in the air because he's hitting him. When you hit an enemy, they stun for a little bit, and that also implies that their fall stops for a little bit as well. And so he is using these moves to lose height. Flicker is one really good move to lose height if you're playing DMC3. So here we see buffering. He was holding that drive, I mean, during this this crystal animation. He's holding it the entire time. You can see him switch to Rebellion really early. You see how he has Rebellion equipped, and he's holding down melee so that he can instantly get this drive. That is called buffering. It's a very simple concept. Basically, you input a move during the recovery of another move. So in here, he does crystals, which has a long recovery. And during him doing that, he's holding down melee for drive. So this doesn't always apply to hold inputs. This could also make it so that you can input, I don't know, let's say Stinger or High Time during a move recovery, and you don't have to press it again. You just have to wait until the animation finishes, and then he'll do it automatically. Usually buffering windows are small, but in this case it's fairly long. Just know that, you know, buffering is just basically makes your move come out as early as possible if you input it before the move ends. So he uses a jump cancel once, twice. That's very beautiful. And it shows how far ahead he was for his time. Because again, these jump cancels are a little bit weird, a little bit. Like, so here he's pushing the enemy away from him, and there's a significant gap between them. By the time he does this, he's still far away from the enemy. He can't jump cancel, so he uses a few moves to get closer to the enemy. See, he is now closer to the enemy because that swing moves you forward. Again, DMC and combat, a lot of it has to do with positioning and knowing how you move in the air and like the ground, wherever, and also knowing how enemies move. But we'll get into that later on, into a different video. But you can see he does a jump cancel to gain a bit of height, because otherwise he would have like fallen below the enemy, and that's a no-no. He wouldn't be able to do this. Skydance with Agni and Rudra, and jump cancel it. Look how he jump cancels the downward knockdown hit into a swing. So this is the one that I was picking up. Again, a lot of this is like knowing your moves as well. Here, the enemy is right here, and I know it's all pixelated, and this is gonna be a thing for the next few videos, but eventually we'll get to videos that are more modern and therefore higher quality. This is at 240p, so if you have an issue with that, you know, this is history. So, Dante is all the way down here. I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor, but this red blob here is Dante, and this spark of white here is the enemy. And the thing to note here is that even though he's so low, hammer hits above you significantly, so it still ends up knocking the enemy downwards. Here is one of the few times you see a lot of repetition, and this is basically trying to show off jump cancels, right? So at the time, this is like, what the heck? Like, that's insane. Because, sure, by now, our standards is like, okay, that looks very repetitive, but during that time, it was like completely new. It's like, not only can you jump cancel into other moves, but you could jump cancel into the same move and like keep it going. Also, one thing that I like too about this video is that, and you'll see this in other future combo videos, but you'll see some little like clips that aren't combos just put into the video, just to add a little bit of spice and variety to make sure that it's not just combos that are being shown off, but things like this where it's like you're using a Tempest to lift enemies in the air that are going to attack you. Because when you enter this room for the first time on DMD, and you spawn the enemies are going to surround you, and you're going to have to jump off the way. But this also leads to some interesting things you can do, because they're always going to attack you first, so you can farm for Royal Guard, but you can also do this, which is like, they're so close to you that you're going to lift all of them up with Tempest. Nowadays, this is kind of standard, right? But, you know, again, this set the standard. Another thing I want you guys to notice is how this combo video is split into different sections. Not only in terms of songs, we already went through the first part of this combo video, which is the first song by Rhapsody. And now we're transitioning into the second song. And that is something that, every combo video does now. And it's something that I don't even think you need to make a combo video to sort of like know that this is something you can do. But one thing that he does that hasn't really been done since is splitting a combo video up by style. So early on we had just combos that were Swordmaster, and now we have just combos that are Gunslinger. Then we'll transition into Doppelganger with the same song. But that's not something that people really do nowadays. People just kind of put things together, and I think that's a better way to do things. But occasionally you do see people section things off by characters. So, Sakaki made, when DMC 4 Special Edition came out, the new characters came out. It was Virgil, Lady, and Trish. He split his Neo Genesis, I think it's called, the combo video. The first part, I think it was just Virgil, and then the second part was Lady and Trish. I could be wrong about that, but he did split the combo video into two sections, one with Virgil and one with the ladies. So it still occasionally, in some form makes a comeback. Probably not directly inspired by this, but you know how video making is, I guess. Some people split things up by game as well. Anyways, yes, this is something that you don't see as often. But also another thing I want you to focus on, and we'll see this later on too with Doppelganger, is how the cutscenes create a foreshadowing to what's going to happen. So early on, we saw Dante using a bunch of like sword attacks in this cutscene when he goes down the tower, right? He's like slicing and dicing people. And so that is supposed to represent, oh hey, you're using Swordmaster. And here, where is it? He's using his guns primarily, so now you know, oh hey, he's going to be using guns. And again, even though this video is unorthodox in the way it's been sort of organized in terms of like styles and stuff, this concept of foreshadowing what the next combo or section is going to be based on a cutscene happens all the time in Don't Make Cry combo videos. Especially in DMC4, people just use cutscenes way too much, not gonna lie. But you'll see in very modern day combo videos, they always have, not always, but most of the time, they have a cutscene of the character before a combo with that character happens. And also cutscenes are good because it creates a break in the action, and sometimes the cutscene can be really good to synchronize with the music and such. But there's Rainstorm, by the way. And these gunslinger combos are ahead of their time, really. Look, jump cancel, jump cancel, jump cancel. Look at that backflip. Look at that finisher. I love this combo so much. So there are a few things that are happening here, and I'm gonna mute this just so that I can like think better. But one thing is that he is buying time here while he's like holding down multi-lock. Multi-lock, for those of you who don't know, is a style move where you use Artemis, that weapon that kind of didn't make any sense. And in Gunslinger, if you hold it down for long enough, it charges and then it shoots a bunch of arrows or lasers based on how long you held it for. And so every time you see the lock-on kind of like bleep a little bit, that's a hit added to your charge. And I like how he just varies it up here on the ground. He then does a launcher into jump cancel swings. Now, remember what I said about how there's a difference in terms of how jump cancel works in the original version of DMC3 versus special edition, HD collection. Every edition after the original first version of DMC3. One of the key things is that you can jump cancel swing a lot more in the recent versions of DMC3 than in DMC3 original, also known as DA. Back then, even though your inputs were legitimate in terms of like how fast you jump canceled, you cannot jump cancel too fast, otherwise it ignores your inputs. This seems to be mainly a thing for swing. I haven't tested it out with other moves. It could be the case with other moves as well. Most people play special edition, so it doesn't even matter anymore. But it is worth noting that the swings he's doing, even though it's in non-turbo mode, it's in normal speed, it is pretty difficult to do because there's a bit more of a limitation. There's a bit more timing requirement. And then I'll just love this. He throws this so that he keeps the enemy in the air while he does a backflip into this revolver, which it just looks so stylish the way he does this backflip. Nowadays a lot of people neglect small moves like this, things that seem kind of like redundant or boring, like a backflip. But backflips are still pretty useful in some situations, or forward flips, or like a roll or whatever. Things that you kind of see as like default to your set. And really good players will always use these little things. So don't be deceived that just because it's a backflip, it's like, oh, we do that all the time. It's the way that you implement it that is interesting and stylish. Oh man. So here, okay, so there's Gunslinger in DMC3 is crazy in the sense that you have to hold a lot of things and you have to mash a lot of things. You have to use buffering to its fullest potential with Gunslinger in DMC3. So during the whole time, again, he's holding down multi-lock and therefore he's doing like ground moves and stuff. And it's easier to like hold down for multi-lock if you're doing like ground stuff, because you don't have to jump cancel or do some crazy finger gymnastics or whatnot. But he shoots multi-lock here. One thing about multi-lock is that you cannot, let's say you and the enemy go up in the air with a high time. It is very bad to be really close to an enemy and let go of multi-lock, because all your lasers will hit at once if you're too close. So here he jump cancels off the enemy so that he gains a little bit of height, so that way his multi-lock doesn't collide all at once with the enemy. But not only that, is that at this time he's holding down shoot for charge shot and then mashing rainstorm for the charge shot. Again, he's holding down for multi-lock, using free ride to buy time, and then it kills him. And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it looks like the door killed the enemy, even though the door cannot possibly do damage to the enemy. Oh, look at this. So this combo was basically showing off how high you can go to the ceiling, because I'm pretty sure most of you felt this way when you're playing the games for the first time. Like, oh, hey, can I actually go so far up in the air to where I'm at the ceiling? And it's something nice to like keep in mind sometimes. You just kind of want to do that when you're first starting off playing these games. You just want to see, oh, how high can I go? And here he does it, and he does it in a stylish way. But it also shows that, how do I say this? Movement matters in some ways. Even though he didn't have to be up that high, he did it because it looks cool. He did it because of the grandiosity of the camera angle. How high he's just wanting to show off, and part of showing off is doing things that aren't necessarily that useful, like. And so here, there is kind of a utility, which is that he is using that height to buffer into Cloud Stomp. So we'll see right here. So first of all, this launcher, if you charge down a Beast Uppercut, a Rising Beast Uppercut, that will launch the enemy higher than any other move in DMC3, if I'm not mistaken. unless you do some like weird glitch, but this is basically the legit way to launch an enemy super high and yourself as well. And so he jump cancels off the enemy after this. Oh wait, he doesn't. Never mind. He just air hikes to the enemy. He air hikes here, gets close to the enemy, he is able to jump cancel on him. Jump cancels really high, then air hikes. And you can see a little flash around here. And this is basically him having his charge shot set. And so he's mashing Rainstorm, shooting with charge shot, and then he lands on the ground, he gets an instant wild stomp. This is because he is buffering from the charge shots into the wild stomp. So usually you have to mash and shoot mash awkwardly near the enemy to get wild stomp, but here he just does this nice little buffer transition from the air to the ground with a crazy combo. It's a beautiful combo. Oh, we see a little bit of Artemis, not Artemis. Oh, classic. Keeping an enemy in the air for a long amount of time so that you can do a very lengthy combo or move and catch the enemy before it hits the ground. That's something that every DMC in history, there will always be a combo like that for like trying to find a way to fit this lengthy move in a combo and making sure it hits the enemy before it hits the ground. And so this is like one of the earliest, simplest ways to do such a thing. You just launch the enemy, do multi-lock, and then do your crazy combo. Again, another example of him showing off some little like strategy or whatnot sprinkled into the combo video. He's just using fireworks to stop the enemies from hitting him in this room entrance. Again, remember about cutscene foreshadowing? This is the Doppelganger style, and you get to see some cutscene with it. Also, can we just give props to like the synchronizations that he managed to fit in with the music? Look at how like whenever the camera angle changes, he makes it sync to the beat. Nothing extravagant with the editing, it's just like really intelligent use of cutscenes and gameplay to sync to the music. It is very difficult to do this in more complex projects, and I don't know how he got this idea, but it worked out really well in the end. So now we get Doppelganger combos. Now Doppelganger combos are crazy. You will see a lot of very primitive combo with Doppelganger here. Like for example, here it's just kind of you and the Doppelganger doing basically the same thing. It doesn't really have anything unique, but you will see later on how smart he is in some of the ways he uses Doppelganger, especially for the time. You see how basically Doppelganger is doing the same thing. It's basically doing double damage. It doesn't matter to me. But here, you see something very interesting. So while he's doing this, one thing we have to know is that Doppelganger is delayed in terms of how he acts compared to you. He doesn't act at the exact same time you do, I think. There's some ways to change this with like tapping double trigger, I think, and using some sorts of buffering. But there is one key aspect of Doppelganger you have to know, is that there's a delay that, a few of the key things. There's a delay. It reads your inputs based on your positioning, kind of. The Doppelganger's positioning? I can't remember exactly, but more than that is that your Doppelganger can't switch weapons. Now, in theory, this is kind of like meh. It's kind of like why? But it does add some layer of depth, and basically The weapon that you have while you spawn Doppelganger is the weapon that the Doppelganger has permanently until you turn it off. So that means that you can make Doppelganger have Beowulf. So here, Doppelganger has Beowulf. He launches the enemy, like the main Dante launches the enemy, but as he's launching it, he's holding down the input. But because Doppelganger has Beowulf, he is holding down for his Beast Uppercut. So he launches enemy, then he starts his Beast Uppercut around here. But notice something else too. Doppelganger does his Beast Uppercut, but before Dante lands on the ground, he does an aerial cross. He does an aerial cross, he knocks the enemy back, but you can actually stop an enemy from flying backwards if you launch him. So he knocks him back, but very soon after, this Beast Uppercut catches up and cancels the knockback, making the enemy stay close to you still. He didn't fly away to the other side of the room. He's close to Doppelganger, and that allows him to continue this combo. Here's another important thing too. He does this crazy combo with Agni and Rudra. So Agni and Rudra has like a combo that is melee, you pause for a little bit, another melee, you pause for a bit, and then you mash melee. Now this crazy combo's inputs are very similar to the crazy combo input for Beowulf, and so they both end up having the same. They both end up doing a crazy combo, but with different weapons with the same inputs. You couldn't do this with something like Rebellion, I don't think. Actually, you could probably, but this is kind of genius for the time. You know, his understanding of inputs and how they work, and how you can have a specific set of inputs that gives you actions for your character and different actions for the Doppelganger. And so this is kind of the basics of using Doppelganger. You see how he uses the delay for the Doppelganger? So that he can, you know, do his ground crazy combo for Beowulf, and he catches him. That is kind of genius. At the time, it's crazy. So for the most part, these combos are kind of basic, but you can see right here, as he's doing... This is a very lengthy animation. As soon as he presses for this million kicks, he's holding down on melee. He doesn't need to mash. He's just holding down, and because he doesn't need to mash, this animation is lengthy, it stuns the enemy for long enough, and so he buffers a Beast Uppercut charged for a Doppelganger. You see that sync? Dude, it's so sick, it's so good. And again, we're using buffering. Doppelganger was on the floor. Again, this is basics of Doppelganger. You are taking advantage of very lengthy animations so that you can charge an attack for your Doppelganger. So you can see after his two-hitter, the main Dante with his two-hitter with Beowulf charges for Beast Uppercut. He inputs the move for Beast Uppercut, but the same input is being sent to the Doppelganger, which uses high time and launches the enemy instantly. It keeps the enemy in the air while he waits for his Beast Uppercut to charge. You see? When he lets go of Beast Uppercut, he immediately holds melee again. And because it's lengthy, remember what I told you guys about lengthy animations? Lengthy animations are really good for charging something for your Doppelganger. And so during this lengthy animation, he's holding down melee And his doppelganger, therefore, is charging his drive. You see? I believe Doppelganger also does a Helmbreaker. Yeah, I think he did a Helmbreaker right here. You can see like some sparks on the ground. Again, very pixelated. I apologize, but you know, this is the first episode, and I think I'm getting a bit too deep with these things. But don't worry about it. We're gonna chill out a little bit in the next episode, kind of. A few clips here that are not combos, just showing off the robot. More royal archers. This is impressive. This is the first time I saw this. It blew my mind. Dude, 2006. That was sick. Come on. May 2006? Are you kidding me? And honestly, this song selection was perfect. Again, this translates to combo maker, combo craftsman, whatever. But I believe later on his name is PrinceOfDevil. I could be wrong. Any like old school players in chat or comments can correct me on that if I'm wrong. Which there aren't many of them. There's like two really old school players around occasionally. Nevertheless, this is Hell equals Sloth. That is the first combo video for a DMC that was like substantial. Again, there might have been older combo videos. I haven't really heard of them, but this basically set the standard for not just DMC3, but for every other game afterwards. It set the standard. Even if that standard wasn't, even though those players weren't directly inspired or even watched this video, you know, some of its influence is still present in modern day combo videos. And again, this is likely a combo video that was inspired by, I don't know, like fighting game combo videos, right? So there is how, like, you know, communities and cultures merge over time. But yeah, that is Hell Sloth is that. The first combo video ever. One of my favorites of all time because it's literally one of the first of all time, and for its time, it was insane. It was really insane. One thing that you will notice throughout much of this combo video is that it is set in place in this room right here. This room is famous because this is basically the combo video room for DMC3, at least early DMC3, before mods and anything. The reason for that is that there's an enemy called Greed, which is in the background. He swings his tomb or casket or whatever, and then he hits the ground and spawns another enemy. Now, this is why it's important, because he spawns another enemy if you fail your combo and recording your combo. You don't have to like beat an entire room and then like get the combo. You could just wait for the greed to spawn in another enemy. And if you kill just the right amount of greeds and enemies, you'll almost always have space. So let me mention something. You notice how the greeds are in the back of the room here, almost always. You can push the greeds there, while you have this big space in the center of the room to combo a sloth in. That way, those enemies don't get in the way of your combo or mess you up. But also that way, you don't accidentally kill the greeds over time. And it will happen eventually, but by accident. But this has another advantage, which is that if you have two greeds, I'm pretty sure it's two greeds at the back of the room, it'll only spawn one sloth, which is good because you don't want another sloth kind of like attacking you while you're doing stuff. Sometimes that will happen depending on how well you control the room, but this is the Crystal Skull room. So the Crystal Skull room is just well renowned for for that. It became a meme when Kyle came about. Maybe I'll do an episode on him. Um, but this is where much of the combo videos happened for early DMC3. Um, Later down the line, we'll see DT'd enemies being used. So these are normal enemies. They're not in DT form, but when they're in DT form, they gain a few extra properties that are actually useful for combos. We'll talk about that later, particularly when we touch upon Brea. Um, but I just wanted to mention that because this guy basically started the trend of using Crystal Skull Room because it is an efficient way to make combos. Now, this isn't just that room. You'll see this is mission 2. This is mission 4. And so he uses different rooms, but as you can see, it's primarily the Crystal Skull Room. Thanks for watching. We'll make another video of this sometime in the future. And as we go further on, when we actually start talking about specific players, things are going to be a little bit more structured and maybe even shorter as a video. But I kind of wanted to make this video because I'm quite frankly tired of working on my current video. And so I just wanted to upload something that is like easy for me to do, not too bad, whatever. But yeah, next videos are probably going to be a bit more well rehearsed and organized. Next time we'll cover, I think next time we're going to cover Bloody Junk, which is another very important combo video, one of the best ever made. Thanks for watching.